Hi guys, today I'm going to show you how to knit this fabulous Cali cropped cable cardigan. It is a gorgeous cropped cable cardigan made of super bulky weight yarn, and it's got this gorgeous cable pattern. And I've made two of them. I've made them in this pink color and this cream color. I have used Lion Brand Woolies Thick and Quick yarn. So make sure you grab the pattern. The pattern is available to download in the video description. I've got 5 different sizes. It's very generous. It's supposed to fit very oversized. I've knit a size 2. I'm about a 37-inch bust, and I chose to knit a size 2. This pattern does include knitting charts, you guys, but don't be intimidated by the knitting charts, all right? I'm gonna walk you through exactly how to read them, how to do them, not to worry. So my video tutorial will walk you through exactly how to do this. If you've never knit cables before, this is a great first project. So grab your pattern and all of your supplies. All the supplies are listed in the pattern and in this video description. And let's get started.
All right, guys, I am going to just kind of explain overall first how we are going to make the Cali cropped cable cardigan. So first we're gonna start by casting on stitches for the body ribbing in 1 size down of the needle to give us a little tighter of a ribbing. Then we are going to work the ribbing for a certain length. Then we're going to follow a chart that works the entire body. So we have our right front over here, some space, our back, and then the left front. And this is different for every single size. The chart is different. So I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna walk you through the pattern just a little bit so you're clear what it's about. I might have a different picture here when you have your pattern. This is still a draft version of the pattern, and I haven't finished all my photos, so your pattern might look a little different. But first you're going to want to take a look at the sizes. I have 5 sizes. You can take a look at the chart, and the chart will give you a range for the sizes. I'm knitting a size 2. I am about a 36-37-inch bust, so I'm going to knit a size 2. It's meant to fit very, very oversized. I have 5 sizes with pretty big ranges. It is pretty forgiving, but just know that it is meant to fit pretty oversized. So you are going to take a look at the pattern because there are many charts. I'm going to explain how to read the charts kind of as we go so it's not so overwhelming. But my goal here first is just to kind of explain the overall construction so you know what we're doing. So we're going to follow the body chart for the body, and then we will separate and knit the left front, the right front, and the backs separately with their own charts. Then we can do the ribbing for the body, for the collar around here, and then we'll do the ribbing for the sleeves. So that's just kind of generally, and then we do seam it at the top of the shoulders there. So every size has different charts, so just know that, and don't be overwhelmed by reading charts. It's actually very simple. I'm gonna walk you through it, and let's get started. One thing I wanted to note too is please make sure to check your gauge. Knit a sample in stockinette stitch to make sure the gauge is similar to my gauge. If it's not 100% exact, that's okay. It is very important to block your work. I do recommend using some sort of yarn with some natural fiber. Like this has usually like 10% wool in it. It just helps the stitches to lay a little flatter and the work to block a little bit better. If you do use synthetic yarn, that's totally fine. You can steam block, that can work pretty well. Some synthetic yarns just don't block as well as others. So Lion Brand Woolies Thick and Quick yarn is what I'm using. It does have some natural fiber, some wool in it, which does help the stitches settle, the cables settle. So I'm going to start casting on the number of stitches for my size. Please reference the pattern for your size. Again, there are 5 sizes, so if you see a list of numbers and you're following a size 2, you're going to look at the second number in a list of numbers. I'm going to start by just tying a simple slip knot here, placing that on my smaller and longer needle. And I usually say smaller and longer needle instead of the exact size in my patterns, because if you change your needle size, that needle size that I reference won't apply to you. So I'm using, in my case, my 9mm knitting needles, and I'm just casting on the number of stitches. For my cast on, I'm just using the long tail cast on method with my yarn held in front, and I'm holding the yarn around my thumb and the other yarn attached to the skein around my index finger, and I am going to wrap the yarn. I'm going to take my right hand needle and stick it underneath the yarn around my thumb, over the yarn around my index finger, and pull through. So that's how I am casting on using the long tail cast on method. So you're just going to keep casting on until your total stitch count is the stitch count that you need for your size. All right, once you've got all of the stitches cast on for your size, making sure you've got the correct number of stitches, because it is very important, because we will be reading a chart. You're going to turn the work, and this is going to be our first row of our ribbing, and we are on the wrong side of the work here. We are going to purl 2, 1, 2, and then we're going to complete a knit 1, purl 1 to 1 stitch before the end. Knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, all the way across until we're 1 stitch before the end. 1 stitch left, so knit 1, purl 1. I should end on a purl stitch before I have 1 stitch left, and then we're going to repeat the purl stitch. We're going to flip the work and continue now working in this established pattern, but we're on the other side of the work, so all the stitches are reversed. So instead of starting with purl stitches, we're going to start with the knit stitches. So we're going to knit 2, then work a purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, all the way until 1 stitch before the end. And when you are 1 stitch at the end, you're just going to end with another knit stitch. So we've completed 2 rows now of our ribbing. So you're going to work back and forth until the length the pattern tells you to, ending after a right side row. Finishing up my ribbing. And you're going to want to finish after you have completed a right side row. So I just finished the right side, and the reason we're finishing on the right side is because some sizes need to adjust the stitch count to line up with the chart that we're going to be following for the body. So look at the pattern and figure out if your size needs an extra stitch halfway through the work. So we're going to work back. If your size needs an extra stitch, you're going to work back till about halfway through. It doesn't need to be exact. And then you're going to make an extra stitch. And that will give you the stitch count that you need to start the body chart. So I'm going to turn the work on my side, and I'm going to work back, and then I'll show you, for those who need to add a stitch, I'll show you how to do that about halfway through. Not all sizes need the extra stitch, just for reference. All right, I'm halfway through ribbing back. And to make an extra stitch, all I'm going to do is make 1 left. You can make a stitch however you'd like. This is how I like to do it. I think it looks the best. I'm going to make 1 left by inserting my left hand needle from the front to the back in between this bar, in between the 2 stitches. And then you just simply knit through the back loop here. And it might be a little tricky. There, got it? There. So I've made my stitch, and then I just continue my ribbing. So that will give me the stitch count that I need, and you can barely see that extra stitch now. So you just continue the ribbing all the way to the end. Your size does not need that extra stitch. You just rib all the way back normally as you have been. So now I'm finished with the ribbing, and I just wanted to note, when you measure the ribbing, you measure from the bottom of the work to where you are at the needle. So the pattern will specify how long to work the ribbing until you need to add that extra stitch or not. Okay, so now it's time to work the body. And to work the body, we are going to, on the very first row, I'm going to switch to my larger needles. If you like to switch a different way, I switch by just knitting off of my smaller needle onto my larger needle as I'm working a row. Some people just like to slip all the stitches off and not do all of that at the same time. I'll show you how I like to do it. So all the sizes will direct you to look at a specific chart, and this is the chart for the body. So I am going to open up my chart, and it'll tell you how many times to work each repeat on the chart. So let me just pull that up here. Okay, so this is the body chart for the size that I'm working, a size 2. And it'll tell you within, I'm just going to go over first how to read the chart. So you start working over here because this mimics the way we knit. We knit across this way. So when you read a chart, you start from the bottom and you work from right to left. Note that the wrong side row is not indicated. I have a 1, 3, 5. The wrong side row is not listed because all you're doing is working the stitches as they appear. So if you see a knit stitch, you work a knit stitch. If you see a purl stitch, you work a purl stitch. So it says work the wrong side row stitches as they appear, which means you just work as whatever stitch they are. So you're going to start, and it says each chart section has what the abbreviations are. So if there's nothing in the box, that's a knit stitch. The dot is a purl, and this is a cable. This is the cable stitch. Cable stitch 6 in front, and I'll show you how to do that. So I'm just going to walk you through the first row. For example, you purl 3, then you knit 6, and you repeat that a total of 2 times. So you'll repeat that again. That's just a way to kind of truncate the chart. So not every stitch is indicated because it is a pretty specific repeat. So you'll work this repeat twice, then purl these stitches, then work this repeat 6 times, then purl these stitches, then work this repeat twice, and then 3 purl stitches at the end. So this basically represents one side, this is the back, and this is the other front. So this would be the right front, the back section, and then the left front as we get over here. So again, you just work each stitch as they appear. I'm going to start working this, showing you how to do this also while moving it over to the other needle. So we're going to start by purling 3. 1, 2, 3. So I purled 3, and again, each size will have a different chart. So I'm just working the size 2. This is the size 2, but you need to reference what to do for your size. The same concepts still apply. So let me just show you the other charts. So other charts will have the repeat in a different spot, and you'll just work the chart as they appear. Again, the same concepts apply where you repeat the stitches in the chart for a total number of times indicated on the top here. So I'm going to purl 3, knit 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I repeat that chart one more time because it says to repeat that first group of stitches twice. So I go back to a purl 3, and a knit 6. So I'm not going to go all the way across, but basically I just completed this first repeat. I purled 3, knit 6, repeated that, purl 3, knit 6. So now I'm going to move over to this section where I purl these stitches, then repeat this section 6 times, purl these stitches, repeat this section twice, and end with a purl 3. That's how you read that chart. I'm finishing up my first row. I'm almost done moving all of my stitches off of the smaller needle onto the larger needle. I'm ending with a purl 3 for my body chart here. So I've now finished my first row of the chart. And if you're off and something happens, it means you probably just miscounted somewhere. So take the time to get this correct and making sure you have all the stitches right, because if it's off now, it's going to be really difficult to figure out where you went wrong, and you'll have to go back. So make sure you got this all right. The stitch count works with the chart. You're going to turn the work now, and remember, the wrong side row is not listed in the chart, but all you're going to do is follow the stitches that are already there. So I have, it's basically just reversed of what the chart is. So I ended with a purl 3. Now I'm starting with a knit 3, purl 6. So you just work the stitches that you see. You see a knit stitch here. So I'm going to knit my first 3 stitches. They're knit stitches. The purl stitches have the bumps, the ridges here, so you know those are purl stitches. And I knew I knit 6. Everything was in a group of 6 on the knit stitches, so I know these are, I'm purling 6 stitches here. See? So I'm just working the stitches as I see them. Finishing my second row here. Turn the work, and now I'm ready to work a row 3. So just remember, when you're reading patterns, you start from right and you go left, and then you would knit back. So when you're ready to read a row 3, you start over here and you work again from right to left. So you start with the row 3 here. So I'm going to continue in this fashion until I've completed a row 10 and I'm ready to work an 11, and I'll show you how to work a cable row. If you're working a different size, your chart's going to look different, but you still need to know how to work a cable row. It might be in a different spot. So I'll see you back here when it's time to work a cable row. I also wanted to mention, sometimes, and my testers mentioned this as well, if you want to strategically place stitch markers to help you better visually see where everything is, feel free to do that. I think some of my testers put stitch markers around the 6 knit stitches on the right side of the work, because that will be, this group of stitches, that group of 6 stitches will be what you end up cabling. So if you would like to do that to help you, you can put some stitch markers on either side of those 6 stitches representing the cable stitches throughout. And it can help you just know when to switch your stitch because the stitches in between will be purl stitches. Now it's time for me to work a cable row. And I just wanted to show you how you can count the rows to make sure you're at the right spot. It can be tricky when you read charts, you can lose count, but you can always count your rows that you've completed. So here's the end of my ribbing. Here's my first row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've worked 10 rows. Now I'm on the 11th row for my body, for my size 2. So again, yours might look different if you're working a different size, but the same concept still applies. You can still count the rows the same way, and you're going to work the cable row the same way. Basically, every set of 6 stitches, so we're on the right side of the work, every set of these 6 knit stitches will be cabled. So that's easy to remember. So, you know, reading the chart might be a little bit easier if you understand that all of these 6 knit stitches will be cabled. So let's get started on our first cable row. I'm going to work in pattern up until my first set of 6 stitches. So I'm purling. So to work the cable 6 in front, we're cabling across 6 stitches. We're going to slip the first 3 stitches onto a cable needle. You can use a DPN, you can use a lot of different things, but you just need to be able to slip off of both sides. I've even seen some people use a pencil. And then once those 3 cable stitches are slipped onto the cable needle, you're going to hold it in front of you, and then you're going to knit the 3 stitches that are left. So we've knit our 3 stitches, we still have these in front. Now we're going to knit the cable stitches off the cable needle. We're basically twisting the work. So to knit these off of the cable needle, you simply knit the 3 stitches. It can be a little tight, it can be a little wonky, but that is how you work a cable. So you're going to continue again across. I'll show you one more time. Purling the 3 stitches in between for me, for my size. Now I'm going to work the cable. I have my 6 cable stitches here, my 6 knit stitches. I'm going to slip the first 3 stitches off of the left-hand needle onto the cable needle. Make sure that cable needle is in front of me. Then I'm going to knit the 3 stitches left. 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to knit the 3 stitches from the cable needle. 1, 2, 3. So you're going to continue that all the way across. So here's what it looks like after your first cable row. Again, depending on your size, it'll look a little different, but that's how it looks after your first cable row. And remember, when you come back now, so I've finished a right side row, when you come back on the wrong side, those 6 cable stitches will just be 6 purl stitches now. So just remember to purl those 6 stitches. Again, it might be a little wonky. The stitches are twisted, so they're a little tight and they look a little funny, but just know that you purl across those 6 cable stitches when you are on the wrong side of the work. Just wanted to show you how to join the next skein of yarn. Here's the end of my first skein. I have the start of my next one, and I am just going to hold the yarn double. So here's my new one, here's my old one. And I'm going to do some purl stitches in between. 1, 2, 3. I usually do like 3 or 4 stitches held double. Then I drop the old skein right here and just continue working with the new one. So that's how you can join the yarn. I would suggest doing it in purl stitches because that will be less obvious. And then you'll have a double stitch. And then you just go back and you treat those as 1 stitch when you are knitting on the wrong side. So that's how you join the next skein. Okay, I have finished the body to the point where I'm supposed to, completing the first chart, the body chart for my size, which is a size 2. And I just wanted to note, you're going to want to make sure, like if your chart ends on a row 21, you're going to want to come back and purl back for a row 22, so you're on the right side of the work. So make sure you always finish with a wrong side row after your last row on the chart. So take a look at the pattern. It will tell you now to start completing the right front, and there's a chart for that. I just wanted to note, with all the charts, the left and right fronts are the same, so you don't have to worry about knitting different charts for the left and right fronts. So we've completed the body. We're now going to work back and forth to complete the right front. So the right front is the front or the side that is on our right side, as if we were wearing it, not as if we were looking at the work. So just remember that. So you've ended after a wrong side row. We're on the right side now, and area closest to us now is the right front. So we're gonna be working back and forth across the right front. Before we move on to knit the right front, I did want to make a note about adding length to the body. This is a very cropped cardigan. If you want to add some length to this, feel free. So to do that, the easiest way on some of the smaller sizes, I want you to know that there are 13 rows in between the cables. So if you wanted to add another cable to this, you could just make sure you knit 13 rows and then do another cable. And then the most important thing is to make sure you have the same row count but after your last cable row, because this is going to line up with the left and right front chart. So you don't want to you don't want to mess that up, because then the rest of the charts will be messed up. So if you want to repeat this, you can work another cable and after you've knit 13 rows. Again, the most important thing to realize is that there are 13 rows in between each cable row. So if you wanted to add the length, make sure you have 13 rows in between, and you need to make sure you end with the same number of rows before you start knitting the left and right front. So on some of the larger sizes, you'll have multiple cables on your body, and you could just add another cable row in between the 13 rows, and then just make sure you have the same number of rows before you knit the left and right front. All right, I hope that makes sense, but it is important to make sure you stay kind of on track with the chart and don't change the number of rows before you divide for the body. Okay, so now we're going to start working the right front, and we're going to work across, so the pattern says to work across a certain number of stitches and then place the remaining stitches on a piece of waste yarn or knitting extension cord. I have my knitting extension cord handy. I'm going to show you how I use this. These are available in my Etsy shop and are linked in the video description if you would like to grab some of these. This is my large size. Since we're knitting with larger needles, the cord just allows bigger needles to slide in on the end. Okay, so the pattern tells you to work across a certain number of stitches and then place the rest onto a piece of waste yarn or a knitting extension cord. So I'm going to do that now. I'm sorry, the pattern will tell you to work across the first row of the left and right front chart for your size. So you'll work the first row of the chart and then place the remaining stitches on a piece of waste yarn. All right, I've worked across my first row on my left and right front chart. I'm going to take my knitting extension cord. You can also use a piece of waste yarn if you would like, and a tapestry needle, and take your needle and take all the stitches off. I just really like using these extension cords. It's a lot faster. So all you're going to do now is you've worked your first row. Now you're going to just slide all of these stitches onto this knitting extension cord so they're just being held, and you can use your needle to work back and forth. Some people can work with all the stitches still on the needle. If you're new to knitting garments constructed like this and you're having kind of a hard time visualizing what's going on, I would suggest getting all the stitches out of the way so it's easier for you to work. When you become a little more experienced, you can keep the stitches on if it makes sense to you. All right, so I'm sliding all these stitches off. I'm going to remove the extension cord from my needle and just make sure the stitches are on here, sitting nicely. When you buy my set of knitting extension cords, for each size, each size has a 60-inch cord and two 30-inch cords, so it's great for holding sleeves and stuff. If you want to tie a knot on the end, you can do that. That helps keep the stitches from falling off. Some yarn is more slippery than others, but okay. So the rest of my back and left front stitches are on the knitting extension cord now. Here is my right front, and I have my needle free of the rest of the stitches, so I can turn the work now and work back on my chart. But on the wrong side again, we're just knitting the stitches as they appear. So I have 3 knit stitches, 6 purl stitches, 3 knit stitches, etc. So that's what I'm going to start doing. I'm going to work back on the row 2. I've knit back on a row 2. Now I'm on a row 3, which on my chart is a cable row. So if you're knitting different sizes, your spacing will be a little different. But so just continue working the left and right front chart as it appears in the pattern over here, ending after a row, so if this is a row 27, you're going to want to come back on a row 28. Okay, so you're going to work the chart and then a wrong side row, and then I'm going to show you how to bind off on the right side of the work, so then we can move on to the back. I've completed the right front now, and I'm going to bind off. I've finished a wrong side row. I'm on the right side of the work, and now I'm going to bind off in the established pattern, which means you just knit the stitches as they appear and bind off as you go. So I will show you how to do that. So you will work your first 2 stitches in pattern, and then slip the first stitch over the second stitch. You work the next stitch in the pattern, slip the first stitch over the second stitch. And you keep repeating this all the way across, just working the stitches as they appear and sliding the stitches off. We will be seaming the top of this. We'll be seaming the shoulders together. We'll be seaming the top of the shoulders together. And once you have 1 stitch left, you can cut a tail and pull the yarn through. So now we're done with the right front. And now we're going to begin the back. So now we're going to begin knitting the back, and the pattern will tell you, if you go to the section that says back, you're going to start at the right underarm and place a certain number of stitches back onto your needle. So I'm going to untie my knot, place my needle on the end of the extension cord, and I'm going to make sure it's really tight on there. And now I'm going to slip the number of stitches back on my needle for my size. We're going to keep the left front stitches on the extension cord. So we're moving just the back stitches onto the needle. All right, I'm sliding all my stitches on here, and I'm making sure I have the correct number of stitches. This is where I'm supposed to end, so I'm going to remove the knitting extension cord now, pull this through so the left front stitches can just rest on the cord. I've got my work on the needles. We're going to slide the needle through so the stitches are on the left-hand needle, and we need to join the yarn over here and bind off some stitches. So I need to slide the work through so that I can join over here. Okay, so I just slid the work through. I've got my other needle over here, and now I'm ready to join the work and bind off the number of stitches I'm supposed to for my size. So I'm simply going to join over here, and to join the work, it's pretty simple. Join the yarn, it's pretty simple. You just start knitting with it. So I am going to bind off the first set of stitches according to the pattern. It'll tell you how many stitches to bind off for your size. So we work to bind off. You're going to work the stitch, and again, I'm just holding the tail. You work the first 2 stitches and bind off. That's 1 bind off. 2, 3, 4. So you have your first stitch already on the right hand needle. And then you'll just be continuing to work the back chart. And the back charts are, most of them are pretty short, and you will just repeat this section a certain number of times across the back. So that's how you work this chart. They're all different. You'll just work and repeat the section following the directions for how many repeats there are. It should be pretty obvious, right? Because we have our work here, and so you'll know you're essentially following in the established pattern, right? So you're just going to work the chart and work the repeats as many times as you already have going right now. And just remember, your first stitch is already on your right hand needle when you start the back. Now work the chart for the back, ending after a wrong side row, and then we'll bind off in the same way we did for the right front. I have completed the back to the point where it's time to bind off now. I'm just showing you what it's looking like. So same thing, we're just going to bind off in the same way we bound off at the top of the right front. All right, I've bound off. I'm cutting the tail, binding off the last stitch of the back. The back is now complete. Now we're gonna make the left front. So we're gonna do the same thing we did before, where we move our stitches back onto the needle, bind off some stitches, and then work the left and right chart. And it's essentially the same thing we did. The chart is the same as the right front. So I'm just going to slide the stitches back onto my needle. You can place them back on if you used a piece of waste yarn or something like that. Okay, I've got my stitches on my needle. I am going to pull them through so that I'm ready to use the left-hand needle and join the yarn at the underarm here. So same thing, we're going to join and bind off the number of stitches you need to bind off. So you just purl, I'm holding this tail with my right hand. I'm gonna work the first 2 stitches and bind off. Work the next stitch, bind off, that's 2, 3, 4. And remember, your first stitch of the chart will already be on the right hand needle, and now you're just going to work the chart as you did before. You're just going to grab your left and right chart and complete this chart, come back and end after a wrong side row, and then we'll bind off on the right side again. Now I am done with the left front, and it's time to bind off the left front over here. Same way we did everything else, and then we're gonna seam the shoulders. I've finished the left front, binding off, and now we're done with the charts. Yay! Now we can seam the shoulders. So first you're gonna want to bring the work so that it is facing you like this. And then what we're gonna do, if you have a long enough tail, great, you can use that. I'm gonna try to use my tail, or you can just start a new skein of yarn. I'm gonna just attach the work here. So we need to make sure we're lining up the cables at the top as we seam so that it is lined up and seamed evenly. All right, so I am just going to attach the work at the end here. And then we're starting with reverse stockinette stitch. So we are gonna come up through the smile. We're gonna follow the ridge on the purl stitch here. So basically, I'm following a ridge that goes up like this, just down near the seam. And then I'm following a ridge that is what we call a smile. So we follow the frowns on the top and the smiles on the bottom. So I'm following this ridge that's a smile up, and now I'm gonna follow a ridge that's a frown. I'm coming back up and back down. And this should be my last one. I'm coming back in this stitch I came out of, and then I'm just following this ridge up and coming up. All right, now I'm gonna go through the V's on the top, and then I'm gonna go through the upside down V's on the bottom. So when you hit stockinette stitch, you go through the V's on the top and the upside down V's on the bottom. So you're going to continue in this fashion all the way to the end, lining up the V's on the top with the V's on the bottom. You'll continue working the reverse stockinette stitch with the upside down frowns on the top and the smiles on the bottom. All right, I've finished seaming up this side now. Make sure you do the other side. Start from the outside in. And then once you're done with all of that, we will begin the collar ribbing. All right, we're gonna start knitting the collar ribbing now. And we're gonna start at the bottom of the right front with the right side of the work facing us. We're gonna work 4 stitches for every 5 rows across the right front. We're gonna pick up 1 stitch for every stitch across the back and pick up 4 stitches for 5 rows down. You don't wanna pick up a stitch for every single row. That'll be too many stitches. So we pick up 4 stitches for every 5 rows. All right, you're gonna go down on a needle size for your ribbing, and I like to start way down here. Sometimes when you have ribbing, it can kind of bunch up. So I like to add like 1 extra stitch at the bottom of the work here. So I'm actually going through the bottom. And this just helps, like I said, to prevent the work from bunching a bit. And you're going to take the end of your yarn, if you can find it. I keep grabbing the wrong end. Okay, you take the tail of your yarn. So you're gonna wrap the yarn tail up and over the needle and pull it through. And you can kind of hold on to this tail as you work. And now we're gonna pick up, start counting this way. 1, you're going into that first stitch. 2, 3, skip a row here. 4. So that's 4 stitches for every 5 rows, and then I just keep repeating that. 1, 2, 3, skip a row, 4. So you're going to repeat that all the way up the right front of the work. I just want to note when you're working in the purl stitch, it's kind of into the reverse stockinette. It's the same thing. You just go into that outside stitch when you pull up a stitch. I've worked all the way up the right front. Now I'm at the back, and we're going to pick up a stitch for every stitch across the back because we are picking up stitches in the same direction as the work. So you just go into the top of the stitch like this and pull the yarn up and over and pull it through, and we keep repeating that all the way across the back. And when you've picked up stitches all the way across the back, you're going to come down the left front, picking up 4 stitches for every 5 rows down the left front to the end, and you can pick up your last stitch way at the bottom there to help the ribbing straighten out on this side. And you're going to want to make sure your total number of stitches is an odd number of stitches so that the ribbing lines up well. I have finished picking up all of my stitches for the left, for the collar here. We're going to turn the work now so that we're on the wrong side of the work, and we're going to start ribbing. And however, just note that it's not, you just don't start knitting, knit 1, purl 1. We're going to slip the first stitches. This just helps to create a little bit neater of an edge. So we're going to slip the first stitch purlwise, and then we're going to purl 1, knit 1 all the way around, purl 1, knit 1 all the way around until you have 3 stitches left. Worked my ribbing all the way around until I have 3 stitches left on this first row on the wrong side of the work. So then you're going to just knit 1 and purl 2 stitches on the end, and that gives us our nice finish. So you turn the work, now we're on the right side, and you will just slip 1 knitwise, knit 1, purl 1 all the way until you have 3 stitches left, and then you will complete, and then you will purl 1, knit 2 at the end. Okay, so you're going to repeat this for a total of 5 rows, finishing after a wrong side row, and then we're going to bind off on the right side of the work. So I'll see you back here when it's time to bind off. Finishing off my 5th row here, ending with a knit, purl 2. I'm going to turn the work over. I'm on the right side now. Now I'm going to bind off in the established pattern just like we did before. So I'll see you here after I'm done binding off. Alright, I'm just finishing up binding off on the collar ribbing now. I'm at my last 2 stitches, so I'm just going to finish this off here, and then I'm going to show you how to complete the sleeve ribbing. It's similar, but we will be knitting in the round, and we haven't knit in the round yet. So if you are new to knitting in the round, don't be intimidated. It is actually quite simple. We're going to pick up stitches same way we picked up stitches previously, 4 stitches for every 5 rows, and we're going to join the work in the round and rib that way. All right, we're going to join the work in the middle of the cast on stitches. Make sure you've got a stitch marker handy, and so you're going to insert your needle into the top of the stitch down here and pick up your stitches. I cast on 4 stitches. So I'm going to start by picking up 2 stitches, and then I will work all the way around and pick up the remaining 2 stitches when I finish picking up stitches for the sleeves. So we're going to be doing the same thing. Pick up 4 stitches for every 5 rows by counting 1, 2, 3, skip a row, 4, all the way around, and then I'll meet you back when I'm picking up and joining in the round. Okay, I've finished picking up stitches along the front and the back of the work here, and I'm going to pick up the remaining stitches. However, you do need to make sure you have picked up an even number of stitches because we are ribbing and we need an even number of stitches. So I'm going to pick up the remaining 2 stitches here. I'm going to place a stitch marker, and now we're going to begin knitting in the round. Knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, all the way around. And then I'll just show you, if you're new to knitting in the round, I'll just show you how to continue knitting in the round once I've worked all the way around. Worked almost all the way around, just wanted to show you how you continue knitting in the round. So knit, purl, knit. You might have a little gap, that's okay. We're gonna weave it in ends, and you can tighten up things at the end. So once I've completed my purl stitch, I just slip the stitch marker and continue knitting all the way around. Knit, purl. All right, I am finishing my last round here. Now I'm going to start binding off. And I am going to, well, you know what, I'll drop the stitch marker, and I'm going to knit the first 2 stitches in the established pattern and start binding off. It's a little different when you're in the round because you still have all these stitches to your right, but you still just continue to bind off in the pattern all the way around. All right, when you're nearing the end of the round, binding off here, complete the last stitch, cut the yarn, leave a tail, pull the yarn through, and now you're going to weave the tail through a tapestry needle, and I'll show you how I close up the round. See how it's kind of open? So you can close up the round. I like to go in right here, come through the front again, and go through the back one more time. And then I weave the tail in up one leg of the stitches here. Just go like this. Tuck it back through here, and I can snip that tail now. All right, so once you have your sleeve ribbing done, the last thing to do is to go back in and weave in your ends, and you can seam up any holes if you would like. I'll just show you how I seam up some holes. This is at the underarm. For me, it's not an exact science. I don't overthink it. I just kind of go in the outer loops around the hole and then weave it back in. So I'll just go through this kind of outer loop here and close up the gap. See, weave that in by following up. When you, I like to weave in my ends along a lot of the seams. When I'm done and I'm finalizing everything, this is just a good way to weave everything in. And then you can cut this. So you'll have lots of other ends that you need to weave in. So just go through and weave in all your ends. And then it's time to block your sweater. And I would definitely recommend wet blocking your sweater if you've used yarn that has any sort of natural fiber in it. This has some wool in it, so I'm definitely going to wet block this. It does take a long time to dry because it's just so thick, but you can stretch the work out to the measurements you need to stretch it out to. And the cables really shrink the sweater up. So it's important to block it, or else it will not be the measurements that it's supposed to be for your size. So definitely be sure to block your sweater. It makes a huge difference.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed knitting the Callie cropped cardigan with me. I hope you enjoy your cardigan, and I will see you in the next video.